Hello and welcome to the show. Today we are going to be talking about Survive the Hunt 13, by far and away the most action-packed of the Survive the Hunt. Survive the Hunt is more of a game, it's a slow burn if you like, more of a thriller than an outright action film in general. It didn't quite go that way this time around, it's sometimes just a thing that happens, and that does make it considerably more difficult for me. Not gonna lie, this was tough, because the longer the chase goes on, we talked about this before, the more dangerous it is, the more prone to mistakes you are, and I spent a good 20-25 minutes in car chases through here. I made 2 mistakes in chases that could and perhaps should have got me killed. A little bit of luck was involved in me not getting murdered in those. A few decent calls were made. As far as the map we got in this one, the flashing dots on the map, that signifies where I am. The little pins, they're not the easiest to see. You can just about make them out on the map. The little pins are where the various prees were located, because of course the aim of the game was for me to blow up as many prees as possible. Now, we start off and everything was, fairly as normal. We got away, we swapped cars, nothing major occurred. The first as you know, tell a lie, there were 3 stupendously lucky bits, I guess, that's, that I came across. First bit, I spotted my first pre. Now, there's a blimp bumbling around. I didn't realise at this point that there were cars appearing from the right. Now, you can see there were 2 of them, in fact, on the map, cars appearing from the right. I was busy watching the lights, not paying a blind bit of attention to all of this. While I'm calling up Lester to get ready to go off the radar, a player in a fire engine flies past. The other car turned down behind the route that I went. Amazingly, no one noticed. I had my arm out of the window with a sticky bomb. Nobody noticed a damn thing. And by the time I actually called Lester, got off the cops turned a blind eye, that's the one, blew the vehicle up, everybody was actually a lot further away from me than they had been. So the fire engine spins around to try and loop back towards the golf course edge of the car. The other car that was at the junction that shot the other way has turned around, and they're all trying to scramble their way now to get to the golf course. I was a lot safer than I, could have imagined, quite frankly. That could very easily have got me. I mean, the fire engine had been a second, maybe later, maybe 2 seconds later, they would have seen me with my arm out the window and a sticky bomb. It's, some dumb blind luck right there. Now, the blimp was around. The blimp had no idea where I was at this, but the blimp was heading around this area. In fact, there were a few cars congregating around here because, well, that's where I had been. They know I'd blown a car up at the golf course, so naturally they're congregating around there, expecting me to be somewhere up this part of the map. I can't, when you're trying to blend in, admittedly I take a little bit of a janky turn here to try and avoid, good thing I did, because there's a heap of cars down that road. I can't get out of an area particularly quickly. It takes me a while I'm trying to blend in with traffic to get far enough away from an area, and I continued this sort of, trying to blend in and trying to sneak around, and unfortunately for me, as everyone was now spreading out from the golf course trying to figure out where I'd gone, that's when I run into trouble. Now, I got distracted watching the ambulance prattling around and the, I think it was a yellow Sultan messing around, didn't notice the lights gone green. And this is where I think I'm in trouble. Now, in hindsight, they actually didn't know. The ambulance was just messing around, and they were searching. I thought the ambulance had seen the Sentinel overtake me at the set of lights when we were going. That's why I thought it was following. That wasn't the case. It was just looking around. It just so happened to be that it was travelling in vaguely similar directions to me. Now, there was a heap of cars around at this point. I don't quite know what I don't quite know. They don't quite know why they're up this area. They were just looking around this particular part of the map. It just so happens to be that I was in this particular part of the map, and I kept wandering around corners and finding a different one because they were just searching this area. The hunters do generally stick in little teams. Makes it easier to deal with me if they do happen to spot me. Now, one of the blips on the map is a blimp. Now, it won't show up, sadly, as anything different to a normal dot on the map, but that's what gets me spotted here. I did a little bit of a goof. In my so busy trying to weave in and out of alleyways and not get noticed, I turned down one that is a dead end. Now, I was really hoping, because there wasn't a car visible around here, I could be sneaky and just jump out here. Now, while this is technically legal, I believe, in terms of the road laws and everything, AI cars will never go down there. And bad news for me, the blimp spotted it. So for a second hunt in a row, the blimp figures out where I am, and the blimp is the one that spots what's happening. Now, I chose to bolt in this one. I realised the blimp was far close enough that it would have seen me. Vehicles were heading towards me, and it's a good thing I did, because I now get I got a pretty good jump on the vehicles. Sadly for me, trying to dodge out the way of incoming cars, I just ever so slightly clip a Sentinel. I get spun around. Now, I got quite lucky in as far as we got going again, while cars were all piling into that junction. I got kind of through the junction okay. We jumped past a Phoenix without too much in the way of issues. And this is the problem, is that the Hunters are now doing a much better job at getting a lot of cars behind me. Shaking off 1 or 2 cars, that I can do. It's not always straightforward, it takes a little while, but shaking off 1 or 2 cars is doable. There's 6, 7, 8 cars have managed to congregate on that part of the map very quickly. They've got a blimp following, and they've got a helicopter giving directions. I mean, other cars are now trying to be brought into the chase as well, and that is the tough thing to deal with. When they can bring in that many cars that quickly, admittedly helps that I got sort of spun around and stuck a little bit, and I was, you know, vaguely surrounded. There were plenty of cars around me at the point where I had to start running. That makes life tough. That makes life very tough, and this is at a very early stage in the hunt, if you like. Now, I'm trying to, of course, weave in and out of roads as much as I can. A lot of people say, why don't I use alleyways and so on? I'm going to give you a simple explanation, and you saw it quite a lot, actually, in the hunt itself. I do not have the space to use alleyways. If I'm having to start slow down enough to make a really, really tight turn into an alleyway, I'm going to get torpedoed. When I've got a helicopter above me, that's going to see. Me diving into an alleyway is the sort of thing that will get me in trouble, because even if by some miracle cars miss it, they're going to go round a corner, there's going to suddenly not be the Sultan, or not be whatever car I'm driving there. They're going to start searching. If I'm in an alleyway, there may only be one way in and out. All they have to do is block the way out, and I'm very much dead. So, at this point, especially when I have a car like a Sultan, I'm best off trying to use speed. I'm best off trying to hope that they make mistakes, because you can see now, you know, we've only been going in this chase for a couple of minutes, and I've shaken maybe half the group of cars that are following. We then go for the Hail Mary attempt at a sticky bomb, and I'm still amazed that actually worked. Yeah, I was quite pleased with that one, I have to say. It was in Pega's pre that I blew up. They were not impressed that I managed to do that mid-chase. Now, as things progressed, again, you can see the managing to spread out the vehicles that were following. I actually got quite close to losing the helicopter at this stage. Annoyingly, the Casco, and there was another vehicle as well, I think it was a Phoenix, were behind me, and there were still more cars on tow. This is the first point where I get incredibly lucky. The police are causing a nuisance in all of this as well. They were kind of the lesser concern. I wanted to get rid of them, but they were the lesser concern at this particular point. Now, I'm trying to leave. I know the bit that I can leave is a load of rubble, and I was trying to ensnare vehicles up here. The problem is I have to be slow to make sure I don't crash. The Phoenix just flies into the back of me to try and make sure that I do crash. Fair enough. Good maneuver. Now, I can't get going very easily. Gliska gets out of the car to start shooting at me. The reason why there were no shots ringing out is just the Phoenix was spinning round to try and get going. That knocked Gliska over. I think it hit the car into Gliska, who fell over, who then didn't have a good shot while I was weaving around this bit of alleyway, and had to go get back in his car. The police car actually saved me from a super diamond as well. That's a lot of luck. The police car coming up out of the drain area drove into the side of the super diamond, pushed it away from being able to block me in. I mean, I don't know whether the Super Diamond would have been able to block me in fully had there not been a police car, but it would have been close. And all of that effort, having been at one point quite close to getting away from a large group of them, there were still quite a lot of vehicles on my tail here. However, what works in my favour at this point is the helicopter goes down. The helicopter, I think, it crashes into the blimp, it clonks the side of a building and explodes. The blimp can't navigate around these tall buildings very easily. That loses sight of me. Both the aircraft are gone here, which means I've now got a couple of corners away, and they've lost sight of the Sultan. At this point, they was apparently, as the helicopters now exploded, but I'm well out of range. I'm actually really lucky because one player vehicle that wasn't in the group following me shoots past ahead. Again, 5 seconds difference, we'd have a whole different story. But yeah, with the aircraft gone, the hunters went around a corner. There's about 3 different white Sultans. They actually went chasing after a bunch of AI vehicles, not realising I had got too far away. It took getting rid of the helicopters. Once the helicopters were gone, they were in trouble. Once the helicopters were gone, there was a little bit of kerfuffle with AI cars, and that was it. You can see the gap that I've managed to make as I ran off into the hills. Pretty damn impressive. And now they don't know where I am anymore. They've got no air support watching. The blimp was still up in the air, but it just it lost sight of me, and while the blimp is relatively quick, it's not that manoeuvrable around some of the taller buildings, and once it's lost sight, very, very difficult to find a way to regain. Now, of course, at this point, I don't know. I don't have the lovely hindsight of that map. I have a world of time up here because they're all in completely the wrong part of the city, but I don't know this. While it is easy for me to look back at times thinking that there is a mile of space behind me, I can't see a car, it doesn't mean that it's not there because I can't have enough time looking behind me at all possible times to know, where vehicles are and whatnot. It turned out I did a fairly good job in that chase. One mistake I got away with, and we got out of trouble. So, we ended up swapping back to a Fusillade in the end of this one, and I found myself in a little bit of trouble. Again, not really trouble of my own doing. I was minding my own business, driving through the city, hadn't really done anything to give me away. It just happened to be that some hunters were congregating around. There were some AIs doing strange things in Fusillades, and that actually got me into trouble here, pretty much. The AIs, a couple of AI cars were doing weird things, and they were starting to check some Fusillades. In fact, they check a vehicle just behind me. You can see the dots come rushing up behind me. They're checking this red car. I don't know what it did to incur their wrath, more their inquisition, whatever. They checked it, and they realised, nope, that is not a player vehicle. That is just an AI doing AI things. He gets back in the car. They're still, I don't know whether they think about getting in that vehicle or what. Either way, that was happening. I've now realised I'm in a spot of bother because I can't bolt off into the distance. I can't, but I can't get out of this area, much like we saw earlier on. I can't get out of this area easily here. I have to go slowly and abide traffic laws, and that makes life a little bit difficult because I'm now trying to weave around. It wasn't the greatest corner by me, and this is where I was starting to get a little bit nervous, shall we say. There are two vehicles behind me that are acting, shall we say, funny in all of this. Now, I'm trying to do, much like I tried to do with the Sultan, I'm trying to stay out of, I'm trying not to get noticed while leaving the area as swiftly as possible. Now, again, briefly, weirdness went on that distracted them. So as I turned down here, they were going to follow. Something else happened slightly further down the road. They went shooting off after whatever occurred down there. I think it was another AI doing something weird, so they went off to have an investigate of that one. I managed to sneak away. I got a wanted level, which I still don't know how. I guess I drove past a policeman or something in a stolen car. I got a wanted level, which meant I had to now try and drive like a normal person while leaving the area as quickly as possible so there weren't police cars around. I think there were a couple of sirens that sort of alerted people to something going on somewhere that it shouldn't. I figured we'll try and use a truck, because I knew roughly the direction they'd all gone in. I was expecting them to be on the left-hand side, which, as the map shows, they were over that way, but they were now following the sirens to see what on earth had happened. They're searching and checking various vehicles, and while I wasn't in a particularly distinctive car in this particular instance, the fact that they'd just been seeing a white Fusillade a lot meant that they were now more curious about this one than they had been, and also the mule's parking job there wasn't particularly helpful. The mule was at a bit of an awkward angle. Now, that's not exactly all that uncommon for the AI vehicles to do dopey things like that. However, again, it's enough for them to be curious, and rather than immediately try and check my car, they're trying to bring as many people over here as they can in case it is me. They've got 4 or 5 cars actually lined up around here. Now, I'm still trying to play this cool. When the Camacho goes in front of me, that I'm not risking. That's a big vehicle to try and, move out of the way. Thankfully for me, they didn't have the fastest selection of vehicles. In fact, somebody was down on the one of the little alleyways trying to get to me. Yeah, the Camacho, it's a sensible technique for trying to check if something is an AI vehicle. If that parks in front of you and nothing happens and it beeps and gets out as expected, then that's okay. However, if I don't act 100% like an AI car, which I'm not, an AI person, it's the car bit I can do, but the person bit I can't do that well. Different walk, you'll have different animations getting out of the car. I'm not going to risk getting myself boxed in with that many vehicles around. I left that as late as I could to realistically go. Any later someone could have got out of the car and tried shooting me, and yeah, it was a bad place to be in. However, I dealt with it about as well as I could, and then we're back into another chase. The Fusillade, got to give it credit, faster than I expected it to be. No, it's not quite as good of a choice as a Sultan, for example, but yeah, it's a pretty damn good vehicle. Now, this initial chase, I actually caused them a lot of problems. They don't get their helicopter up in the air in time particularly well. Their helicopter wasn't able to really get a sight on me. I actually get away from them here. The thing is, I don't know that I've got away from them. They don't actually have a clue where I went. I don't know whether they didn't realise I jumped off the motorway or quite which route I took. Either way, I actually got a really long way away from them. Now, had I jumped out of my car here, swapped into something else and gone back to driving normally, everything would have been fine. Catch is, I didn't know that I was a long way away. And this is one of the real tough things when you're in one of these chases, because I can't look behind me, you know, very easily, and they can be just a quarter behind me and still roughly know where I was. I don't know when I'm far enough away to swap cars. I actually managed to drive myself into trouble here. So I think, right, at this point I figured I'm far enough away, I can swap into another car. Turns out they were now right behind me. The blimp may have had a rough idea of the fuselage for a little while, certainly the blimp did. Now the reason the Kamasho never got out, or the Kamasho never tried to shoot me, is they didn't fancy taking me on as a sort of a 1v1. The blimp now actually explodes, which does help me out. But the Kamasho very much knew it was me, but didn't want to have a 1v1 fight against me, figuring I was out of the car and would have had an advantage shooting at them while they were trying to get other vehicles in. So I guess they were kind of hoping maybe to distract me for long enough that other vehicles could get there. But yeah, basically, Kamasho didn't want to have a 1v1 against me with better firepower than them, and I was already out of the car. So they opted to avoid conflict, which gave me time to jump into the vehicle. I mean, had they stopped and got out, I would have shot them. Maybe they would have distracted me for long enough that other cars are right. But either way, that's what happened there. So we're back to being chased again with the fuselage. Now this is where I got luck number 2, pretty much. This was a big lucky moment. I had figured I had enough time to try and make this turn. I didn't really want to go across the grass because I was worried about spinning the car as it was. Later went for a torpedo. The camera got stuck up in the bushes. Now, as everyone else was trying to make sure I was pinned, I just managed to get going. It was once again Gliska jumping out of the Casco who was closest to getting a shot off. Apparently, as he got out of the car, tear gas was equipped. If he had had a pistol equipped, I would have been in trouble. They were certainly got some shots off, maybe have got a tyre. Yeah, they're tear gas equipped. Not a helpful thing to have jumped out the vehicle with. We get a little bit lucky also pinging our way clear of all of that mess. Yeah, there was some close calls. Again, you look at the map, there are so many cars by this stage were, you know, following us here. Now, I was also helped on this particular instance by the fire truck. Tried to do sort of a head-on collision with me to stop me. Ended up actually taking out a good 3 or 4 of the cars giving chase. That is a downside going for, the heavy vehicles going for that sort of block, is that, yeah, you can end up just wiping out the hunters. Now, the second time I wandered through that kind of construction yard was a success. Noreth had crashed the helicopter again, and this time the hunters had all got tangled up. They'd got through it, but they'd all lost time going through that section. They've got clipped on bits of terrain and got stuck, and that did the job. That gave me the gap, but you can see the gap that we got going on here was enough that they didn't know. I think they knew which way I'd gone, roughly, but they knew I'd prefer to go into the city, so they figured I probably had done that. One went up and checked around the motorways, and yeah, again, I just managed to get that far enough away with a helicopter gone that they didn't know where I was. The map did have a little bit of a freeze, don't worry about that. Yeah, I knew at this point I couldn't go left, and I was very right in that assumption, looking where they were. They'd taken a slightly different road as the main. I'm surprised they didn't spread out more to track more routes. They just assumed I'd gone flat out down there. I had got away. I could have swapped a vehicle at any point around here. I spot the pre, and, you know, for style points, I say for style points, that was the aim of the game. Yeah, I was pretty well clear at this stage. I went for an Explodo on the pre. I don't know whether it's fully notified the owner of the pre. It sometimes doesn't seem to work. However, it doesn't matter. They were close enough that they heard the explosion regardless, so they still knew roughly where I was. That does then kind of start giving them an idea of which way to head. I get quite lucky again in this next car changeover. They're still looking roughly around up here. They are literally down the road from me. Had they been looking / turned the right way at the right time, they could have given me all sorts of grief. I think someone did see, because you see all the dots initially go to shoot past and then slam on the brakes and turn around. I think they saw me carjacking somebody in that one, hence how they still ended up back behind me, but it didn't matter. Once I got into the Rapid GT, I didn't have too much time to go. They didn't have a helicopter above anywhere close to me to be able to give directions, and I just had the speed here. There was no reason for me to be weaving in and out of the roads, because they were all up the top part of the map, following where I was last seen and where I exploded a pre. I knew there was no one going to be really, or unlikely to be anybody ahead of me. I have the fastest car in a straight line. Why not make the most of that? So we just go for it down some of the roads, and we can use, you know, this straight line speed advantage to very good effect. We get far enough away, and with a couple of corners down here, they don't know where I've gone anymore. The helicopter's still up by the golf course, so the helicopter's nowhere near close enough to get into all of this. We are back around by, well, our favourite little subway station. I could have dove down there, didn't need to though, because again, we're too quick, and we are successfully away again. In fact, that was up towards the end of the time. It was tough. As I said, that's probably the toughest survival hunt I've ever done. For me, as a driver, certainly, trying to make those chases without any little mistakes. It was good fun, though. It was good fun. There was probably be a tweak with the helicopter rules and so on. The helicopters are so difficult to shift. They're so difficult to shift with a car chasing as well. With the number of cars they had behind me at a lot of points, I can't mess around to beat a helicopter. But it made for a bloody exciting video. So, that is the important thing. That, though, is going to be it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.